How do, and welcome back to the Brew Corner, where today I'm going to be brewing a clone of Warsteiner, the classic German Pils. It's not my own recipe, I'm actually taking it from this book, Clone Brews, and I'm following it as much as possible to the letter, except for one thing, which is the yeast. The yeast I'll be using is a dried Lutra Kviek. Now in the book they actually tell you to use a lager yeast and then to ferment at something like 12 degrees. I don't have that capability. Lutra, on the other hand, is a Kviek strain that's very, very clean tasting. So I'm swapping out the lager yeast in the book for the Kviek yeast, and this should finish fermenting in about 2 or 3 days from what I've seen on YouTube with other reviewers. So it's a very, very aggressive yeast, but it leaves no flavour. So that's the only change that I've made. And I've made some procedural changes as well, just to fit into my sort of brewing style. For example, the book tells you to put all your malt in with only half the quantity of liquid. So I've got 10 litres in here now. The book says put all your malt in, all the dry malt. I don't sort of agree with that. I think it affects your isomerization of the hops. So I just do a partial boil. I'll use half the malt in the boil for bittering, and then I add the other half right at the end just to pasteurize. So a few procedural changes as well, but other than that the recipe is exactly the same, and I'm going to put it down below so that you can perhaps make it yourself. Right, I'm just waiting for this to get up to 65 degrees, then I can add the specialty grains. So as we can see, that is 65 degrees or thereabouts. So I'm now going to put in the specialty grains. I've turned the power right down on here, just to 500, which should keep it at a nice steady 65. And these are the specialty grains. It's 113 grams of German crystal, otherwise known as Carahell, and it's also 113 grams of dark Munich. So I'm just going to put them in here, give it a bounce up and down, and you can already see the colour is coming out, and then I'll just leave them there. Put this round here, it's hard to do one-handed, and then I'll put the lid back on, and they will stay in there for half an hour. Well, as you can see, it's been half an hour, and now I'm draining these specialty grains. I don't mind giving it a little push like this. Get as much liquid as possible out, and then what I'm going to do is just use a kettle, and I've heated the water up to about 65 degrees, so it's the same as what the grain steeped at, and I'm just going to pour about half a litre over and just try and get as much of all that flavour out as possible. There we go. Just let that drain through. And when I said before, I made a bit of a mistake. When I said there was 10 litres in the kettle, there was actually 9. And with this half a litre I'm just pouring through here, that'll give me a starting volume of 9.5 litres, which is exactly what the book said I should have. So there we go. Right, now what I'm going to do is clean up this mess and bring the wort up to a boil. I'll see you when I'm boiling. It's getting close to boiling point, so what I've actually done next is weighed out 1.3 kilograms of Extra-Light dry malt. Now the recipe calls for 2.6. However, I'm only using half the volume of water here. There's about 9.5 litres in the kettle at the moment. When I pour it into the fermenter, I'm going to be topping that up to about 19.5, 20 litres. So because I'm only using half of the water in the boil, I only want to use half of the malt. You add the rest of the malt right at the end and pasteurize it. Now why is this? Because actually the recipe in the book says put all the malt in at this stage. However, what we're trying to create in the kettle is a gravity approximately what we want as our starting gravity in the fermenter. If I put all the malt into here, all 2.6 kilograms in just 9.5, 10 litres of water or wort, your gravity is going to go through the roof. It's going to be really high, and a high gravity affects how much bitterness you extract from the hops. By keeping the gravity in the kettle approximately at our starting gravity at fermentation, we're going to get all the utilisation of the hops, and it's going to be a level of bitterness. The final beer will have a level of bitterness that we were expecting. So that's why I just measured out 1.3 kilograms of extra light dry malt extract, and then once all that's mixed in, I'm then going to add 57 grams of Tettnang hops. Now these are 4.9% alpha acid. The recipe called for Tettnang 4.5. I don't think the difference is going to make much difference. That small little difference there. So I've gone with the recipe's weight of 57 grams. I haven't tried to extrapolate it, into another weight. But this is Tettnang, alpha acid 4.9%, and this will be my bittering hop. Okay, let me get back to the kettle and let's see when it comes up to the boil. So my dry malt extract is in, extra light dry malt extract, and I'm just stirring it around, getting rid of any clumps. One of the problems with any dry malt extract is it starts to clump up when it gets moist. So a little tip I found is it doesn't clump up half as much if you add it when it's just below boiling point, about 90 degrees, 95 degrees, and it doesn't clump up anywhere near as much, and you can easily get any sort of the lumps and clumps. You can break them up very easily. As you can see, this is starting to come up to a boil. There's a nice big foam developing now. That foam you've got to keep an eye on. It's a bit like boiling milk. That can come right up and overflow. So you've just got to keep trying to move the head away like this. Some people will spray it with cold water, and what we want to get to is a nice rolling boil, and this shouldn't be too long. Maybe in another 5 minutes we'll be ready to add the bittering hops. Ooh, the steam. So there's my nice rolling boil, and I've added in a hot sock the 75 grams of Tettnang, and they will stay in here now, well, for an hour, but I'm going to come back in about 45 minutes. So I'll see you in 45 minutes. You know, one of the good things about homebrew is that 45 minutes where you've got nothing to do except maybe have a beer. This is a Polish beer called Zuba, 6%, so it is a sipper, and so I've been sipping on this now for the past 45 minutes. It's a really nice pint. Anyway, it's now time for my Flavour Edition. and according to the recipe the flavour hop of choice is Hallertau Hersbrucker, and we add 9 grams, that's all. It does say that we should also add a teaspoon of Irish moss, which just helps to clear the beer a little bit and get rid of some of the proteins and bits and pieces during the boil. I've lost my Irish moss, so I'm not going to be adding that. I'm not too worried though, because I'm going to be adding gelatin at the end of fermentation. I think I said in the last video I used a Saison as a test case for gelatin. It's the first time I've ever used it, and wow, it worked. When I was bottling, I was holding the bottle up and I could see my hand straight through. Yet this morning I could feel that the bottles were starting to firm up, so there is still yeast in suspension, but it was really nice and starting to clear wonderfully. So I'm going to use gelatin in this beer after fermentation, so I'm not too worried about Irish moss. I'll then come back in about 10 minutes and I'm going to add another 7 grams of the Hersbrucker. That's for aroma, and they'll boil for 5 minutes. After the 5 minutes I'm going to turn off the heat, and that's it. Brew day's finished. I will then add the extra 1.3 kilogram of the Extra-Light dry malt extract, mix it all in, and I'll let it pasteurise for about 5 minutes. And then I'll transfer to a sanitised fermentation bucket, top it up to about 19 litres or 19.5 according to the instructions, and that's it. Once it comes down in temperature to about 20-22 degrees, I'll pitch the yeast, and that's it. But I'll come back to you when I've filled up the bucket. Hello and welcome back. Here it is, the finished product. 19.5 litres of what I hope will be a Warsteiner. Well, it's a pseudo lager because I'm going to use a Kviek yeast. What's interesting is it's already down to 31 degrees, about 31, 32, which is Kviek pitching temperature. And I've heard mixed stories on YouTube. Some say even when pitched between 30-35 it still produces a very nice clean beer. But definitely when you pitch at room temperature, which is about 10 degrees less than this, you're ensured of a very, very clean ferment. So I'm just going to leave it a bit longer. I think if I leave it out here in the garage, maybe in about 5 or 6 hours it will be down to 22 degrees, something like that, and then I'll pitch the yeast. Nothing to worry about, it's all self-contained. Fermenter's all been sanitised. I've got sanitizer in the airlock. It's a sealed unit, so nothing can get in. And then when it comes down to pitching temperature, hopefully this afternoon, well this evening, I'll pitch the yeast, take it indoors, and I'm hoping in about 2 or 3 days it'll be done, it'll be complete, because on Thursday afternoon about 3 o'clock I'm leaving here. I've got to go to the airport. I have to be at the office, well, Dublin office, by Friday morning, so I'm spending Thursday night in Dublin. What my plan is then is pitch today, give it the 2-3 days it needs, and then Thursday afternoon just before I leave I'll mix up some gelatin and I'll put it in and I'll leave it for another 2 days, and then I'll bottle on Saturday. Hopefully, fingers crossed, there'll still be some yeast in suspension, because the problem with Kviek is it's high flocculating yeast, and there have been people say that if they leave the yeast, if they don't bottle soon enough, all the yeast falls out of suspension. So even like a week or something like that, the bottles don't carbonate because it's all fallen out. So fingers crossed, I'm hoping that if I pitch the yeast tonight, there will still be some yeast in suspension on Saturday, and I can bottle and everything will be fine. Sorry, I've just got a bit of a cough. So that's the plan. But it's all done, brew day's finished. I'm going to go out now, and in fact, well, I'm going to finish this, and you know what, I might just go and pick up a bottle of Warsteiner for tonight. Thanks for watching, hope you've enjoyed it, and give it a go. This extract brewing, it's not difficult. The whole thing has taken me, and that's messing around with a camera and all of this, 2 hours 20 minutes. Normally, if it was an all grain batch, it could be 4 or 5 hours. So it's a really nice, quick way of doing a very good beer. Yeah, 2 hours 20 minutes, and that includes cleaning up, because I was cleaning up as I went along. That's another good tip. So give it a go. It's not difficult. Most of the time you just sat around drinking a beer. So, and next, well, with Kviek, maybe in a week or two, I should be able to do a side-by-side taste test. So thanks for watching. It's been a pleasure, and as always, I'll see you again in the next video. Bye bye for now.